I now call on Professor Charles Gilbert, Director of the Ira Brin School of Theater Arts, to pay tribute to James Lapine, recipient of the degree of Doctor of Fine Arts honoris causa. Charlie?
Today, it's my pleasure to speak of a few of the key accomplishments of director and playwright James Lapine. Lapine won the Pulitzer Prize for Drama in 1985 for his book For Sunday in the Park with George, the first of 3 musicals he created in collaboration with composer-lyricist Stephen Sondheim. Sunday depicts the intense passion and the solitary anguish of the artist's life in a way that many of us, I know, find profoundly true and insightful. I saw the original Broadway production of Sunday, which Lapine directed as well as wrote, and still recall the ending of the first act as one of the most transcendently beautiful moments I've ever experienced in the theater. It rocked my world. Into the Woods was the next collaboration of Lapine and Sondheim, and I imagine that many of the people in this room, like Brad Greer, grew up knowing and loving that show. Right, Brad? I've directed it twice here at the University of the Arts. Lapine, of course, has directed Into the Woods twice on Broadway. And while I saw that original Broadway production, I think the parents in the room will understand when I say the most memorable version of the show I've ever seen was a high school production in which my son played the part of the mysterious man who is, of course, the baker's father. This parable about the perilous journey to adulthood is dedicated by Lapine to his daughter Phoebe, and it is clearly the creation of a loving father. A father's love also quickens the heart of Falsettos, Lapine's best-known collaboration with composer-lyricist William Finn. This musical portrait of an unconventional extended family earned its author another Tony Award for Best Book of a Musical. Lapine and Finn also collaborated on A New Brain and most recently on the 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee, for which Lapine's direction won a Drama Desk Award and a Tony nomination. On the day of your graduation from college, it might surprise you to know that all the achievements I've named are in a different field from the one he studied in school. In fact, Lapine trained at CalArts as a photographer and a graphic designer. What are we to make of the fact that he had no formal training as a director and playwright? Perhaps that the creative impulse can express itself in many different ways, and that a life in the arts can lead in all sorts of unexpected directions. In celebrating Lapine's professional accomplishments, we celebrate the magical alchemy of collaboration. During your years at UArts, many of you have had a chance to experience the excitement that can result when artists from different fields and backgrounds come together to work on a shared endeavor. Lapine's greatest achievements grew out of that same collaborative working process. He is an intrepid innovator who, with his creative partners, has transformed the musical theater of the past 3 decades with a distinctly original voice and a unique vision. I am honored to present as a candidate for the Honorary Doctorate of Fine Arts, the playwright and director, James Lapine.
I now call on James Lapine to come forward. By virtue of the authority delegated to me by the Board of Trustees of the University of the Arts from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, I hereby confer upon James Lapine the degree of Doctor of Fine Arts, honoris causa, with all the rights and privileges pertaining thereto. And I now invite James Lapine to deliver the commencement address.
I'm taking my hat off. Honoris causa? I don't know what that means. It sounds good, though. Honoris causa. Anyway, it's really terrific to be here today, a great honor, and I want to thank President Buffington and the trustees and the faculty and students and family for allowing me to be here. I feel a little bit like a wedding crasher. I get to celebrate even though I don't know the bride or the groom. But I love graduations. They're exciting. They're a mark of an important chapter for you, and I celebrate your years of hard work and partying. My congratulations to all the graduates today. I applaud your accomplishment, and I have to say, I envy the next blank page that you get to face. I also applaud your teachers, accomplished professionals who have chosen to share their knowledge with you and train a new generation of creative people. And hats off to your parents for footing the bill and supporting your attendance, particularly at an institution for the arts. Parents, just think of it, you won't have to face a tuition bill in your mailbox this fall. And that's worth celebrating too. When I was asked to speak with you today, a slight panic set in. I'm not really a public speaker. And I sort of thought about it, and generally I think commencement speakers are expected to do a couple of things. One is make some profound observation about the world the graduates are about to enter. And two, offer a healthy dollop of pithy platitudes along the lines, "You are the face of the future, we pass the mantle to you." So let's start with one. A few things actually have been on my mind the past several months with regard to the arts, but I'm not a great prose writer, so I hope you'll excuse me, but I've decided to write a short play for today. I hope you'll indulge me. You don't have much choice, I guess. And my acting skills really are terrible, but I'm going to give it my all. I don't think I've ever read my work out loud before, so this is a first. And I'm going to do my best to make my characters live. The title of the play is The Devil and Dianne Feinstein, or Her Imaginary Son. And here we go. It's scene one. And lights are up on a serene kitchen table somewhere in the likes of Georgetown in our nation's capital. And seated at the table is Bobby, around 18 and a bit of a slacker. He sits waiting, and finally his mother, Senator Dianne Feinstein, Democrat of California, rushes in. And she is dressed for success and has that perfect, helmet hair. And Dianne says, "I'm sorry I'm late, dear. We had a last-minute vote on the Hill. Have you been waiting long?" And Bobby says, like 2 hours. "Oh," Dianne says, "that's not too bad. Okay, now, why are we getting together again, son?" And Bobby says, "Mom, you've wanted to know about my plans for next year. You've been bugging me about this forever, and I thought it might be better not to discuss it in an email." Dianne says, "Oh, that's right. Okay, so is it going to be Stanford or Berkeley, Bobby?" "No, Mom," he says, "I've decided to go to the University of the Arts in Philadelphia." Dianne is stunned by this news. "Really? What exactly is that institution?" "Well," Bobby says, "it's just what it says, Mom. It's a school for the arts." So there's a long pause here, and Dianne, like a good politician weighing the pros and cons of an issue before declaring an opinion, finally says, "Bobby, you do know that we are in the midst of a recession, don't you?" Well, Bobby says, "Yeah, of course, but the government is passing a $787 billion stimulus package. You know that." Dianne says, "Oh, Bobby, don't be so naive. You don't actually think any of that money is going to go to the arts, do you?" Well, Bobby's stunned by this and says, "Why not?" "Well, for starters, Senator Coburn of Oklahoma included an amendment that said no stimulus money could go to casinos, zoos, golf courses, and museums, theaters, and institutions of the arts." Well, Bobby says, "Why would he do that?" And Dianne says, smirking, "He's a Republican, dear." Well, Bobby says, "What does that have to do with anything?" Dianne responds, "Well, you better take that up with Arlen Specter." Well, Bobby says, Mom, you didn't vote for that amendment, right? You're a Democrat. Well, Diane has to say, sorry, dear, I did. But so did Schumer of New York and Casey of Pennsylvania, and they have lots of theaters and museums in their states, too. See, this is a job stimulus bill, honey. Well, Bobby goes off on a tear. So, in 1935, the last time this country created a large stimulus package, Mom, like President Roosevelt, created the WPA. He created the Federal Writers Project, the Federal Theater Project, the Federal Music Project, and the Federal Arts Project. He gave plenty of money to the arts. Bobby, you've been spending too much time online, Diane says. Roosevelt saw art as a means of bringing us together, he tells his mother, and like lifting our spirits and our national pride during a difficult time. He also knew that when people go to a theater or a museum, they bring money into the neighborhood, into the restaurants, into hotels, into parking garages, not to mention the tourist industry. Well, Diane gives a little laugh. Oh, Bobby, you do have a little of the politician in you. But sweetheart, you won't win with that kind of idealism. We have television now. People are happy to sit home with their cable boxes. She rises and begins to leave. Now, you think about a liberal arts education. That's a sound investment in our tough times. Bobby says, you suck. Well, this stops Diane right in her tracks. Excuse me? Robert Joshua Feinstein, that is no way for a son to speak to his mother. Bobby says, I was speaking to you as a constituent, Senator. Diane shakes her helmet head and exits. End of scene. Scene 2. We're lights up on the same kitchen table a few weeks later. This time, Diane is sitting at the table, and finally Bobby enters with a huge sack full of papers. Sorry, Mom, I'm late. How long have you been waiting? You know how long I've been waiting, Bobby. Attention must be paid. Bobby says, oh, that's good, Mom. Death of a salesman. Good. Okay. So Diane says, now what is it that was so important that you needed to talk to me today? Well, I did a little more research, Bobby says, and he pulls out reams of paper. Did you know that there are 28 million people employed in the arts? That the arts represent 4.5% of all businesses, or like 2% of all jobs in this country? That we have 686,000 arts organizations? Diane coldly says, yes, I know. You do. Dear Bobby, she says, you'll be pleased to know that the amendment that Coburn had made has been extended, and the stimulus package will include $50 million for the arts. That's a 1/3 increase of the usual arts budget, okay? Bobby says, wait, but 50 million out of 787 billion is like a crumb. And you're saying that the National Endowment for the Arts has only a $200 million budget, like that's a lot of money? Well, hell, if I... Oh, Diane interrupts him. No swearing, dear, please. Whatever, he says. Have you read the papers lately? The randy Prime Minister of Italy, Berlusconi, well, like, he cut their national arts budget in half, and people took to the streets to protest. Now, their arts program, they're now getting half of that, which is $235 million. Hello? Even at half, Italy is still giving out more money than we are. Hello, like Italy is like the size of Pennsylvania and only the 7th largest economy in the world, and we're like number 1. Diane says, all right, son, all right, you get an A for research. Now you'll excuse me, I have to get back to the Hill and the people's business. She rises. Mom, he says, yes, dear. You did vote for the revised amendment to give money to the arts, right? Diane has to take a long, deep breath. No, I didn't, Bobby. You have to think of the big picture, dear. I'll see you later. And she starts to exit. Oh, have you made your decision about college yet? Yes, I have, he says. I'm going to Philly. I'm going to UArts. Well, Diane gives a big Jewish mother sigh and says, and just what do you think you're going to study there? And Bobby says, playwriting. Diane, a little condescending, says, and have you ever written a play, son? Bobby says, no, but I'm working on one now, and guess what the topic is, Mom? It's about you. Well, Diane turns ashen. You know, fear and panic cross her face. Suddenly, the power of the arts hits her where she lives. Bobby gives a sly smile and walks out of the room. Blackout. End of play. So, I remembered when I dropped the bomb on my folks that I wanted to get a degree at an art school, and they were not college graduates, and they took great pride in my brothers and sister and I getting a college degree. But I told them I wanted to, they weren't sure what an arts degree meant, but, they sucked it up and they supported my decision, even though, to be perfectly honest, I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do with it ultimately. As you heard, I did get my graduate degree in design and photography. I moved to New York. I proceeded to work as a tour guide at NBC, a secretary, many jobs as a waiter, a freelance photographer and graphic designer, and somehow, eventually, I was hired to design a magazine at the Yale School of Drama, which was being edited, ironically enough, by the nominee for the chairmanship of the National Endowment for the Arts this year, Rocco Landesman, who was a student there. And somehow from there I transitioned from design into theater and to being a playwright and director, but I'm not going to bore you with the details. But this is my segue into part two, the platitude-ridden part, about go out into the world. And I just want to tell you, I want to tell you, when you go out to the world tomorrow, you may not be making a living exactly doing what you trained here to do. And that's a good thing, because you want to be open to opportunities. And yes, I count being a waiter as one of the seminal experiences in my life. Being a waiter allowed me to observe people and cross paths with people I never would have met otherwise. It allowed me to watch their behavior, listen to their speech patterns, and that's actually become very invaluable to me as a writer. And being a waiter gave me spare time to take my photographs and make art. So moms and dads and grandfolks here, when your kid tells you they're going out tomorrow to work as a waiter, don't be alarmed. Your money was well invested in this education, and this is a rite of passage, and I salute you for whatever you do tomorrow, because just be open to it. It's going to lead you to great things. And I do want to interject a little moment of reality here, why I went on the funding of the arts. I'm 60 years old, and I am considered a success in my profession, and this past year I had 3 projects canceled because of lack of money in theater budgeting. And I've always had a delicate relationship with the healthcare issue because I am self-employed and this country does not have a universal health coverage. Well, I could go on, but I don't want to bum you out. But I say this to you as a good thing because you're doing what you're doing because it's what you have to do, because it speaks to you from the heart, and that's always to be saluted. And so you may not have the security one day of a 401k, but what you get in exchange is something thrilling. You get a chance to make people laugh and cry. You get to share what's on your mind with people. You get to speak from the heart. Because I feel that we're frankly in another recession now, a kind of spiritual recession. And I say the arts have to elevate this country through its culture as well as its financial institutions. And one day, perhaps our government and our politicians will take our souls into account along with our pocketbooks. So, in closing, I'm going to give you one pithy platitude. It's hard to say that. I say go out and fail, okay? I know, that doesn't sound like good advice. But of course I want you to succeed too. But if you don't take chances, you're not going to fail. And you have to take chances if you're an artist. You always have to be willing to make a mistake. You have to be willing to fall on your face sometimes. And I'd have to say personally that in my life, that it's my failed projects that have helped make the successful ones possible. You learn from your mistakes. So be brave out there. I'm reminded, actually, as I was sitting here as President Buffington and was talking about the arts, and also Sunday in the Park, which was kind of my first Broadway show, and there's a scene at the end that Sondheim wrote a lyric to that one character sings to an artist who's very unclear of what he's supposed to do next and very insecure about himself. And his muse sings, "Anything you do, let it come from you, then it will be new. Give us more to see. So I say, please go out, create news and advertisements and computers that make our everyday experiences a little more enlightened. Make art and sculpture and designs and illustrations and photographs and music and dance that bring beauty to our eyes and provoke the way that we think. Give us films and videos and theater that help us see who we are. Picasso said, art is the lie that shows us the truth. And I say, go out and lie, class of 2009. Bring us the truth. Bring it on. Congratulations.